Hello and welcome to day 16. My name is Tammy Davis. I'm your mentor and guide and neighborhood alchemist on this journey of 30 days of essential oils. If you're new to my channel, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy today's video on Dill Weed. If you're new, if you've been with me for a while, just know I really can't thank you enough for sharing this journey with me. Just as a reminder, I do have the 31 days of oils, essential oils. If you haven't already seen that, please visit that because that's an entirely different set. And as always, I am blogging, but the blogs come out a little bit slower than the videos do. So I just want to jump into it. Ooh, I'm sorry, I have an itchy nose. It's interesting, yesterday we talked about cinnamon bark, and believe it or not, cinnamon bark and dill weed blended together would be an exceptional blend for supporting liver and nitric oxide, like we were talking about with regards to blood sugar. Dill is really very good. It's very high in carbone, which is very beneficial for nitric oxide synthase function. And like I said yesterday, NADH and NOS, they work hand in hand. They are two systems that they're interdependent, let's say it that way. I like dill for digestion, especially when there is evidence that of like indigestion, or there's evidence of some sort of cardiovascular issue. What I'm trying to say is evidence of, cardiovascular concerns. That would make it evident to me that nitric oxide, again, it would really depend on what the person reported, but if there's any sort of respiratory or more specifically cardiovascular issues, as well as digestion, then dill is really good for that. You also have histamine problems. This is another reason why blending this with cinnamon bark would be helpful at low doses. Exceptionally low doses. And the reason I say that is because cinnamon bark has already been noted as very beneficial for candida and yeast. So is dill, and it will push it out through your skin. So if you're going to be blending anything like this, and I'm kind of giving you guys some hints on how I would do this because I'm coming up with the blending series. But again, if I'm going to do that, then I want to make sure that the lymph system is moving. Now, I'm making these recommendations with oils, but none of them can be mixed with medications, especially if you're blending them together. So that would be dill weed, bay laurel, otherwise known as laurel leaf, and cinnamon bark. Exceptionally blood thinning, and that's your primary focus there. So you want to be really very careful with that. And diabetic medications, they don't work well with diabetic medications either. So again, because there's blood sugar issues, when there's blood sugar issues, you're going to have a tendency to have, it's already an indication that the body isn't breaking down protein and glucose properly due to the stress response. So those three oils would be very, very effective as far as moving the lymph, flushing yeast, and helping to stabilize the NADH cycle, so that the fermentation process or glycolytic cycle stabilizes, so that we don't have the blood sugar issues, we don't have the yeast buildup, we don't have the histamine buildup. All of those go hand in hand. As I mentioned, though, if you're already taking some certain medications, then those three oils are no longer welcome in the body. There's too much of duplication of mechanism of action, as well as conflicts at the CYP450 enzyme, liver enzyme level. So, but in that case, if none of that is an issue and you're not taking medications, then something along these lines would be very helpful. Now, that said, these three don't necessarily soothe the parasympathetic nervous system or the autonomic nervous system as a whole. And that would want to be, you would want to include something else along those lines that would help in that area. Possibly ginger root. Again, some blending ideas there just to kind of keep you hopefully interested in the oils. But it's a very interesting way to go about helping the body. But again, if you're just using dill and if you don't even know if you have candida or yeast in the body and you go to use dill, you could potentially develop a rash, and that would just be indicative of the body pushing the yeast out through the skin because the lymph is stagnated. Now again, with the stress response, We no longer break glucose down properly. We don't break protein down properly, and the lymph stagnates. And we're not breaking those down properly because we're not producing enough hydrochloric acid. There again, now this is where you would come up with indigestion. So really helping to stabilize those systems, and understanding how the potential for having what would seem like a yeast flare up coming out. I mean, I went like this because I've actually had people break out on their face. Although they weren't using dill on their face, they actually broke out on their face. I have had people use dill, and they actually develop a rash exactly where the oil was placed. So that's another thought there. The other thing with dill, which I really like and have used it for, is the transfer of methyl groups. And what I mean by that, if you're not familiar with that, the methylation pathway, the epigenome, otherwise known as the epigenome, the process of the methylation pathway is it does have to transfer methyl groups to, it's all chemical conversions is what it is. It's a chemistry experiment. That's what the body is. And just know the epigenome is designed to operate this way. So there's constant changes occurring, where switches are changed, meaning genetic receptors are activated, then they're deactivated, then they're activated, then they're deactivated. And there's a chain reaction that occurs. This is natural. This is the way our body is designed to operate. And I've been known to say, and I will say it again, that if you've taken a DNA test, one of the saliva, when you volunteered your saliva, the reports that you get subsequently from that is a snapshot of your epigenome at that time. Doesn't necessarily mean it's like that today. And just because you might get a red indicator saying that a gene has been two deactivations, does not mean that that's a bad thing. It may just be that wherever your system is at, that has been altered as a result of what your body needed at the time. So these are all stress responses, and the stress response is a natural survival mechanism. That's really what it is. And however, these chemical conversions have to happen, and so dill weed is actually very beneficial for supporting that. Now that I've said that, though, it's not advisable to mix dill weed if you're going to be taking any sort of methylation products from a naturopath, which I know you can get. I've seen them. I've worked in an office like that before, and things like methylation accelerator, you don't want to mix with dill. You just don't, because at that point you're going to have a huge eruption, potentially serious blistering that could occur. I've watched it happen because the combination was made, and this was before before the individual recognized that they were taking it, and then the next thing you know, they had this massive problem flare up, and I ended up taking them off the oil because I was not the naturopath, so I didn't take them off the supplement. But once the oil stopped, then they were fine. Now, of course, some people go, you had an allergic reaction. Here's the thing. With an essential oil, there's no nitrogen in it. There's no peptides. And so it requires protein to develop an allergic reaction. However, that doesn't mean that the immune system hasn't been activated. Okay? So there is an immune reaction happening. And at the same time, it's not necessarily your classic allergy where immunoglobulin A is been activated. It's primarily that a detox process was activated, and it can't be pushed through the lymph system, as I mentioned, so it comes through the skin, which is the next big detox layout. I'm at a loss for words right now. I apologize. So anyway, just want to make sure that you understand, besides medications that I already mentioned, you do not want to mix dill weed with any kind of methylation acceleration supplement. And if you have any questions about that, please let me know. In the meantime, I'm going to stop here and leave you with that. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to sign up for my newsletter. I would love to have you join the mailing list. I'm going to put one together here in the next week or so for October. And let's see what else. Aromatherapy is a lifestyle. Yep. Closed Facebook group. It's closed because I don't want my material searchable on the World Wide Web. It is my life's work, but I'm happy to share it with you. So feel free to request to join that group. And by all means, if you have any essential oil suggestions or requests, again, be sure to let me know. All right, you guys, thanks and have a great day.